Thank you for joining me on Delicious by Debbie, and I am getting ready to make a meatloaf. It only takes 4 ingredients for the actual meatloaf itself, and then you make a sauce kind of glazed to go over the top of it, so that would be extra, but the actual ingredients in the meat itself is just 4 ingredients. And one of those ingredients is a box of stuffing mix. Mine happens to be turkey, doesn't really matter. You can use whichever one, whatever flavor you want. But put that in a container here. And with that, we're going to put 1 cup of hot water. And we're just gonna let that sit. I will stir it in a little bit, but we're gonna let that sit. And while that's sitting, before I can add it to the meat, we're gonna make the sauce that goes on it. For the sauce we're gonna make, we want 1 cup of ketchup. Already had a cup measured out here. We get a spatula. Clean this out. I don't wanna waste that ketchup. Cup of ketchup. 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar. 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, however you want to say it. I know I don't say it right and people always correct me, and that's okay. If you feel better correcting me, that's fine, but I'm still probably going to say it wrong. But I want 2 teaspoons. Okay. And I want 1 teaspoon of yellow, just regular mustard. Okay, 1 teaspoon of mustard and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And that's what I've got here, onion powder. I'm gonna wipe this off. Looks like it got something wet on it, but I want 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And we're going to mix this up. I want to use the whisk. I will use half of this in the meatloaf, and the rest of it I will put over the top. So we've got that ready. Okay, in my mixing bowl here, and I always mix meatloaf up with my mixer. I have arthritis in my fingers and it hurts so bad if it's cold meat, which this is. But I am using 93% lean beef that I get from Sam's Club. I have 2 pounds in here. And to the 2 pounds, I'm going to add 2 eggs. And this stuffing mix that I mixed with water and let sit. All right. And half of that tomato ketchup sauce that I made, half of it goes in here, and that made a full cup, a little over a cup. So I've got a half of a cup to put in here of this mixture that we made. So that's going to season it up too. And I'm going to mix this up. So the meatloaf is all mixed up. It's a very nice texture. Okay, I'm going to turn this around, and I have greased a loaf pan, and I'm going to put this into the loaf pan. If it's too much for the loaf pan, I'll make a few little separate meatloaves, but I think this is going to be all right. I want to push it down in there as firm as I can. There's not a lot of air bubbles down in there. I see a few, so I'll just keep pushing it down. All right. All right, there it is. Now, before I bake this, I'm not ready to bake this yet because we're not going to eat this early. But before I bake this, I will put half of this tomato ketchup sauce that we made on it, bake it for about 45 minutes. Then I'll take it out of the oven, put the rest of that sauce on it, and bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes, and it'll be finished. And then I'll let it sit a little bit. This is ready to put in the oven. I put some of the sauce that was left over. I used half of it in the meatloaf, and the other half I put some of it on now. After this bakes for 45 minutes, I'll take it out of the oven, and I'll put the rest of that sauce on it and bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll show you when it's done. I wanted to show you a piece of this easy peasy meatloaf that I made. It is delicious. My husband tasted it and said he thinks it's probably the best meatloaf I've ever made. He sure enjoyed it. That is good. I hope you'll give it a try. It's super easy.